the energy before the lunchroom is generally the place where you want to harness the maximum amount of it. So that's what we're going to do in the next 40 minutes that we have together. Hi. What we are intending to do in this session is to take you through a journey. And you'll have to help me in managing that journey. Can you help me? Yes. I need louder voices. Yes. That's wonderful. So I'm going to take you through an imagination journey in which this part of the room, let's call you Team A, okay? And this part of the room, I'm going to call you Team B. Team A, your job is to imagine that this is your first day in a role. You're walking into a boardroom, and as a part of your first day in the boardroom, you're greeted by the CEO, the rest of the CXOs, taken through the organizational dynamic of the operating model, what the culture is, and after that, there is a plant visit which helps you get an overview of a line assembly of automobile. You're with me? Stay with me at the plant. You're observing how the line assembly is happening. Team B on this side. Imagine you've woken up at 6 in the morning. I'm hoping some of you get up at 6 in the morning. It's your first day at work. There's a doorbell that rings at roughly about 8. It hands over a packet to you. That packet has an Oculus. You get inside the room. You put on the Oculus. Oculus are those camera, those big goggles. They take you in through a three-dimensional world wherein a bot welcomes you. The same set of leaders in a virtual format greet you. The bot talks to you about everything the role has to offer. And then again does the same plant tour of the automobile line assembly. You're with me? You're at your sofa set. You have the Oculus. You're thoroughly enjoying the immersive journey. Team A. What would you define the culture of this company that you've just joined and you're sitting in the boardroom and you've moved to the plant? What words come to your mind? Any? Emotional connect? Connected? Openness? Innovative? Values? High on human factor. Okay, so let's keep some of these word clouds with us. Empathy, very interesting. Team B, what's your characteristic of the experience you've just had in the orientation? Futuristic, virtual, adaptive, tech-savvy, somebody said. Flexible. Interesting. All right. Now combine these two word clouds, and what if I told you you joined the same company? You're in different parts of the world and having an experience which is a blend of everything that you stated. Empathy, warmth. Somebody also said values. Here, futuristic, at the same time very immersive, experiential, and so on and so forth. This is what we will discuss today. How is the future changing where our culture will be an amalgamation of human warmth and technology, enabling us to create that connectedness with what we call as culture? And it's that thread which binds us all together in the organizations we work as. I have a star-packed panel right around, and I think my job is much easier because they will share their nuggets of experiences with all of us. But I'm going to make your job a little bit more, tougher, which is you'll have to help me ask questions. Can you do that? Yes. Wonderful. So after a couple of questions which I pose to them, I'll request you to please raise your hand. Somebody will hand a mic to you. Feel free to ask the toughest, the most difficult question, because at the end of the day, there is a reward as well for the toughest question, which will be evaluated by Raj Kamal. And she will be the one who will judge out who asked the most difficult question. And the reward is none other than Krish Shankar's cat eyes. He'll personally autograph it for you with all the best wishes on stage. Thank you so much, Krish. So you're with me so far? Wonderful. So I'm going to get started, Krish, with you. In the age where agile cultures are being formed with this blend that I just took everybody through, it's very futuristic. You and I spoke about that this is going to be roughly 15 years down the line, but a lot of that has started. What's been your experience in your organization and industry at large on how we're tackling this culture co-creation, this balance between human and tech?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. It's great to see all of you in big numbers. And coming from that end to this end is like navigating the Bangalore traffic. It's like even worse than that. It's silk boards all over. So good to be here. I think this point about culture. You've all heard of this very famous saying, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," right? I mean, I don't know who said it, but everybody talks about it. But yeah, Drucker said it? Yeah. Now, I think what's happening now is technology is also eating that breakfast very fast. You've seen that while culture, technology is saying, what is culture? And there's so much technology that is impinging on culture over over the years. We've seen that. And now over the last few years, we've been talking about automation, AI, kind of, coming into how we work and kind of impacting. But we also had a big kind of event in the last couple of years, which also changed many things, about culture. Working remotely for over 2 years and, I don't know what impact it has, but there is a big impact in culture. So while we're talking about this culture, this human and tech element, I just thought we'll just take a step back, yeah? Because there is a lot of talk about the culture as of now, because we are going through a big transition, so there is something to talk about there. And culture, the continuum of change with technology has been coming in over so many years, yeah, and accelerated by this pandemic over the last couple of years. But if I take a step back, I just want to really look at it in 2 or 3 buckets. First is, what is culture? Yeah, you all know about it, right? Culture is really basically is a set of behaviors that we all see each other, the behaviors that are there. And I think these behaviors basically kind of, are kind of over time, let's see, how is it built? And there are 3 key things that really build those behaviors. First is leaders, like all of us, I think you build the culture. Second is what we call as routines, the kind of stuff that we do, day-to-day events. For example, a CEO runs a weekly kind of operations call, and that creates a culture. Or you have a kind of long service award and various things. Or in Infosys, we have something called a Pithy Infosium, which is all about talent show for the young people. So those create a culture. So routines or events or activities that you run, the leaders, and thirdly, the incentives, yeah, that we have. So these are the ones that really kind of impact the culture. But if you just look now into the change that is happening, yeah, and the change is, there is this big change of technology eating into culture and impacting culture. And second change is all this about, there's this thing about this pandemic, and I think the earlier speakers spoke about it. It's about how can you really manage a culture where you have people working remotely. And in companies like the tech companies, I know many of you are from there, almost 40 to 50% of the people in every tech company are new in the last 2 years, yeah? Because the companies have grown, we've grown over 20%, we've had high attrition because of the growth, and you've seen a whole lot of new people in these companies, and they're all remote. And how do you really manage, and what is that? And culture in the past used to be really managed through leaders, and how did leaders do it? Through meetings, through various things, and the physical settings played a big role in managing culture. And that's now also changing. So therefore, technology is now brought in a new term, what I call as digital culture. In every organization is about how does culture come through in a very digital way, and how do you really manage that? So that's something we've got to do. Now, as we look at it, there are these 2 or 3 things that I think companies have to do, and I'm going to talk about 1 or 2 things that we are trying, though nobody can claim, and I can't claim that we have solved this whole thing of culture. I think the first thing is, technology is going to be a key part in everything we do, yeah? When designing the tech interface, how do you think about this whole human angle in it, yeah? So therefore, bring that whole design thinking and empathy in every tech interface that you design. So I think that's something you got to really hard code into the tech things that you design and see how you can bring that. The second is, we've now had a lot of people kind of, working thing, interacting, and the key thing is this managers and the middle managers and leaders. How do you really, make them empowered to drive your culture? Yeah, I think they become the fulcrum around which the whole culture has to be there. That's the second thing. The third is really, there are various platforms that are there, so many of these tech platforms, but I think stepping back and saying, okay, how can we have this balance of using a platform but having this human element around it? I think without that, your culture will not be built. So you've got to use the tech platform given the virtual environment, given so many things that are happening. And therefore, planning that digital culture by having a mix of this human interface or human design within the tech interface is going to be very important. So these are areas that we are all working on. And areas like checking on happiness, wellness, productivity, all those have become very important as we've kind of seen technology playing much more a role within this. So I think key thing for us is to look at these three things. This design of tech interfaces, using the human element, making your managers being very critical and how can you do that. I think there is a word that Gartner uses called emotional proximity, That's a nice word. And how can you really bring that together where you make people feel heard through the managers and they become very important. And thirdly, this whole thing about creating various mix of the digital come the human element and planning that mix right through as you plan your culture right through. So I think that's what I would really look at.
Thanks a lot, Krish. I'll build on to your question in which you talked about the significance of line managers and people leaders. And Raj, I'll shift the question to you. You've spoken in many conversations we've had about the integral value of frontline leadership towards creating culture. If you blend technology with it, what are some of the dynamics you're seeing as changing? How the role of the frontline manager is changing with technology, rather enabling them to do their jobs better?
First of all, lots of gratitude to all the leaders and my managers there. And Sumer, a big shout out to you. So glad to see you. He was my first manager. And the role of the first manager is intrinsic in everyone's life, right? So big shout out. And just, he's, great to see him here. Manu, just go back to when Krish spoke about when we were coming here, we were all claustrophobic. Manu was leading me, and initially when we were walking past the booths, I had my hand on her shoulder so that I don't get lost. So, that's the navigation that we're all doing through this entire uncertain times. That's the picture. We need someone. And I'm going back to 2.5, 3 years ago. I remember we put out a white paper when we were talking about, okay, the world has changed, we are learning new habits, reshaped workplace and all of that. And I remember in the white paper we said, spans of the frontline manager will increase because technology will be able to do or help the managers really manage a large span. And all of us have the myth. And for me, it's been the biggest myth. What has happened is truly that shoulder, somebody to lead me on, is even more required in this digital world, in this hybrid world. The second thing, that second learning really is, as human beings, why do we come to office? Or why do we, in any group, we have 3 basic needs, and I'm just simplifying it. We want to be respected, we want to be heard, we want to belong to a tribe, and we want to be valued, right? Especially working from your couches, working from across the screen, what's happened is the worlds have shrunk. The tribes that we belong to is the immediate people that we perhaps see on the screen. As much as the world has become large, because with screen, you can meet many people, you can do meetings frictionless, all of that is happening. But what we recognized is our worlds are becoming narrow, and the friction from the sense of belonging, social capital, if you please, is also depleting. And hence, I think we often talk about the leadership challenge. In a hybrid world, a leader has to manage the emotional intelligence, as well as, in COVID, a lot of leaders had to manage the entire task of getting the job done, and also the emotional part of managing or steering the organization through pandemic. The unsung hero, I would say, is the frontline manager. We don't discuss the role of this manager hard enough. The third part, I think, just to make the role of the frontline managers really, really critical, and all of you who are running organizations, please look at the role. The reason it's critical is, one of the things that we tend to do in organizations, wherever we don't have the answers, we pass it on, the person will figure. A la Manu. Manu was my manager, she was leading me on, and she also was uncertain how to go, but I was just being led on by her. This has become this understanding has become really, for us to kind of use this insight to drive on your strategies. So we've had a large workforce, hybrid workforce. Our entire back-end operations is running hybrid, and many of them, 30% of them are running remote, 12,000 people in a regulated entity. It's not been easy, but what we saw is, contrary to everybody saying, oh, social capital is missing, etc., we've had actually better outcomes in certain teams with vis-a-vis productivity and performance levels being really high, people thriving. And we try to uncover what's the difference. It is really the managers out there intentionally bringing about the emotional proximity, intentionally reaching out and saying, okay, you and I are similar, just having the call. And I think whenever we talk about this water cooler conversations, we have a romantic view, right? Oh, water cooler conversations are missing. What happens in the water cooler conversations? If you're not intentional, they don't happen. In many organizations, I see people are sitting on the screen and plodding away. In the digital world, what technology is giving us a gift is being connected with a wider set of people, but it's taking away certain advantages as well. But I think from a capability point of view, the frontline managers, the ones we've got to teach them how to kind of work with their teams to be intentionally, emotionally proximate. Figure out the similarities, saying that you and I are different, have conversations. And I think that's the beauty of this world, where we are straddling across. There is huge amount of tech, but we've got to become and realize that we're humans, end of the day, and get that core out.
Thank you so much, Raj. And I can't thank equally the people who've helped all of us come to the stage where we are. And the concept of lean on, I think, is very, very critical in today's world. How do you sustain a lot of this? And Vipul, this is a question I'll pose to you. We're still evolving, we're in a flux. It's almost like changing the tire of a running engine. How do you sustain a lot of this change which people are seeing, and they're managing this amalgamation of culture through human and tech interface?
By the way, Raj was being led by Manu, and Raj was leading me. So the chain goes on. But before I get into answering you, Manu, I wanted to call out Prithvi Shergill and Raja sir. These are the people who actually got me here. If they were not there and they had confidence on me, I would have pretty much not been in this function also. So thank you very much. Also puts a little bit extra pressure on me, because I'm under performance anxiety, and that's also a culture. So high performance delivered from Accenture and, of course, from the Tata Group. But Manu, you ask a very pertinent point, and I was listening through what Raj was saying and what Krish was saying. But one of the points of view which is very, very logical, which is driving technology change, is actually culture. If you really look at what is happening from a culture standpoint, is what is actually being led from a technology standpoint. So culture and technology are actually cyclical. So what people want from a culture standpoint, technology has started to deliver that. And then over a period of time, people's needs changes. So then technology gets reinvented through culture. So that's the way we look at it from an ADP standpoint. That's the way we've looked at it from where I've worked before. One of the key things that drives organization from a culture standpoint is pretty much the values of the organization. Krish talked about behaviors, but if you actually define those behaviors and coin words around them, they are pretty much the values. If you live your values, you pretty much execute the culture of the company. And if you live your values and execute your values, if you want to execute something, organizations have become really, really huge. When I joined Accenture as a young man, we were about 1,000 people. Today I hear there are about 2.5, 300,000 people in this country. Can you imagine executing culture for 300,000 people across X number of geographies without the leverage of technology? So they go very hand in hand. That's the way I would look at it. I want to go back into something that we do from an ADP standpoint, and I want to share this with you all. We have 7 core values which pretty much drive the culture of this organization in 56 different geographies, 60,000 people, the world's first HCM and the largest HR product company into SaaS. This is not about ADP, guys, but I just want to give you all the context because I want to link technology to where I'm coming to. We were the first SaaS product in the entire market from anything, not only from an HCM standpoint. There are, like this, I talked about the 7 core values. 3 of them which are very, very pertinent from a people and tech standpoint. One is each person counts. The second one is results driven. And the third one is the client is a North Star. Of course, we have a few more integrities, everything, corporate social responsibility, but if you look at it, how do we pretty much drive these values to an integrated technology platform? And we have a platform called Standout. It's built by Marcus Buckingham. He's the father of Q12, the strength finder. All of us would have used Gallup at some point of time, etc. What we do from a Standout standpoint is that it's a tool that we use for performance. It's a tool that we use for engagement. It's a tool that we use for coaching. It's a tool that we use for people touch points. It's something that, that's a tool that people actually check in, and there's a check-in which happens with the manager at a very, very frequent basis. When we were implementing this in 2016, I pretty much thought that, this is going to be crazy. I don't know how are we going to do this. But, our core focus was that we need to build a culture which is consistent across the entire world. And we can only do this by a framework, and we wanted to leverage technology. So that's what we wanted to do. Today, about 40 out of Fortune 100 companies use this product, etc. So it's been a pretty successful product. But I had my own doubts. Today, 96% of the people pretty much use the use the check-in framework that currently exists within the ADP framework. If you look at it, what does it do? Each person counts. When somebody checks in and somebody is actually talking through a check-in, you're actually making the associate or the employee feel important. They're feeling wanted. And I think that's what pretty much builds some amount of stickiness. It's a performance platform. It's an engagement platform. On a quarter-by-quarter basis, if you're able to course correct, and you're able to give feedback to the person whom you're talking to, you're pretty much able to deliver something to make the associate do something better. And that itself is a core value for us, results driven. We want everybody on this company to be results oriented. So, that actually helps us in terms of improving performance of the organization. And at the end of it, what do we want? We want the client to actually feel happy about it. And if associates start to do well, the client is the North Star. We actually start delivering better to our clients. So through this framework, we were able to leverage something from a tech standpoint into what our core values were and what our core values are. Organizations do it different ways. There are different companies who do it in a better manner than what we do. But I would think that, in a world which is getting more and more integrated, becoming more and more transparent and less opaque, I do not think that, we can say culture and technology are agnostic of each other. That's the way I would put it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vipul, for your integral thoughts there. Each person counts has been a philosophy which I strongly believe in. And I hope that in your organization, that's a tenet of embedding culture with technology enabling it. I'm going to shift the gears a little bit here and first start with the statistics. The recent McKinsey report on the future of work stated that there would be almost a 50% depletion of today's jobs through automated technologies, which is roughly about 1.2 billion people around the world, close to 14.36 trillion average salaries across the globe. India is one of the largest markets which will have its impact. Now, with such a drastic shift happening on talent, on skills, my question to you is, Nishchay, As this disruption happens, it's also a fuel for reinvention. And with the skill gap enhancing by the day, how do you first manage the tenet and enable it with its impact on culture being positive?
Thanks, Manu. I am nervous and excited both. I don't think I have to elaborate on why I'm nervous. Just given the number of people that we have coming together, it's a hot spot. So please keep safety. Please be safe during the next 2 days. I see this as an opportunity and a big challenge for the HR talent and learning community, and more so for the business that we run and drive. And I find that when you use data, you can tell a more compelling story. So thank you for making that introduction to data. And this is both for the advocates and for the skeptics and for the fence-sitters. Because I'm sure we are looking at skilling as a subject through various lenses. But we do know that skilling is at the heart of transforming nations. I mean, it is evident, it is clear, there is enough data to prove that. The narrative that I would use is the following, and I'm going to not test my memory, but look into my notes. Number one, 82% of employees across the world are willing to take the ownership of upskilling and reskilling themselves. And 54% of them believe that they do not have the requisite skill set to survive and sustain the changes that we are going through. 47% of HR leaders say that they do not even know where the gaps are as far as skills are concerned. Okay? Please pay attention. I'm going to logically build on this argument. 40% believe that even if they knew what the gaps are, they are not adept at very quickly addressing those skill gaps that exist within organizations. So they're always behind the curve. 69% of organizations recognizing this have increased their investment in learning and development and in skilling. The one point I would make here is incremental increase in spend will not help you reach the destination because we are so behind on this specific agenda. So the challenge really is for the HR and learning community, how can you reallocate funds from that exist within the organization where there is this urgency and recognition that this is an important agenda for the businesses to survive and sustain. How do you make that shift? How do you make that compelling argument? Coming to the question of culture and technology. So the way I look at culture, and I don't think it's really changed over the years. I mean, we're still using the same adjectives to describe culture, right? High performance culture. So you're looking at productivity. Let me just take that as a substitute for performance. Social cohesion or collaboration, which has been one of the weakest areas of culture within organizations. So social cohesion, collaboration. Agility, which perhaps now is even more important, and innovation. So these four elements, and I'm now going to look at technology and how that can help you bridge the skill gap and really build this culture that we all aspire for. The use of AI and ML, I mean, we are very familiar with it. And clearly, if I just look at AI and ML and the application in the field of skilling, what's really missing in an organization today, going back to the point that we don't even know what skills exist or where the gaps are within an organization, is to create a unified taxonomy of skills as your base. And that is absent in a majority of organizations, but is a priority for most organizations to begin with. And if you can therefore use AI and ML as an example, build a skill studio that can help you edit, manage your skill sets, and train the nodes so that course recommendations, personalization, the experience that we talk about becomes a possibility. The other aspect I would want to emphasize is, of course, the use of AI and ML has driven personalization and driven the experience that has, always been absent for organizations and employees. So the learning experience platform, and I'm very tempted to give an advert, but I'm going to resist giving adverts here. But clearly what you are missing today is the engaging experience that has been absent. And the million-dollar question that I'm going to conclude with is, without having a healthy learning ecosystem, which I call collective abilities to perform, it is a pipe dream to aspire for active and keen learners. It is impossible that if you do not repair the learning proficiencies that are required to perform as an organization, as a collective, then you will never have keen and active learners within the organization.
Thank you so much, Nishchay, for some very pertinent pointers, which I hope you've taken a note of. This is the time now where I shift the gears and pass my job to you. Questions. You ask first. Please state your name and the question. I think lots of people are aspiring to get your book, Krish.
Good afternoon now. So I have been following you for quite some time, and to me, you definitely come across as a very successful HR leader. And this question is about something that I want to gain in terms of knowledge and learning. People talk about success, and generally the failures are known to those individuals only. So as an HR leader, right, what do you think you have not really been able to kind of influence in terms of an outcome, which is a deeply rooted desire that you carry? And what is that you want to kind of do about it? Thank you.
It's a tough one. But, you know, it's a tough one. And I mean, I don't know if you guys heard the question, yeah? It's about what is it that I've still not found it easy to influence, yeah? I think it's quite simple. It's culture, you know? We all talk, for example, one of the things that we would all like, you know, I'm just taking, you know, look at companies like Infosys or any other large companies. We got 325,000 people, yeah? How do you manage anything? You got to manage through technology, that's important because the whole scale, but you got to manage through people and leaders, right? Now, there are some things that you'd like for people to do, which is there, but not yet there, you know? So you say, what can we do more? So I think it's not that these are things that in an ideal state you would like much more, but given the thing, I mean, just look at, I think Raj spoke about it. If you look at, if I spoke about the three key things that drive culture, which is leaders or managers, the routines, you know, what you do, the processes and routines, and the incentives, what do you incentivize them, you know, your performance management, what is recognized, you know, those kind of things. Now, you'd like managers to spend more time having career conversations with people, coaching people, etc. But that's a culture you'd like. But I also find that that's tough to do because the managers themselves are unchallenged because they're short of people, they are delivering to clients, they are also learning, they've got to learn technology. I think we are asking too much of them also. Yeah? So how do we manage? You know, that's where we've got to bring a little bit of technology in to help them, a little bit of seeing how you can, you know, coach them better and, you know, give them the power to do more things. So I think that's one thing. If there are areas that you would like you'd like little more focus on development of people. And how do you do that? You know, and there are pockets that are very great. There are some pockets that are not there. You can try all those things. The processes and technology, the incentives. We do all this great manager, best manager. We do all of that. But that's slowly moving, but still, you know, you got to be realistic. So if you ask me an area where I'd like to do much more, probably that's one area I'd like to do much more.
Hi, I am Dr. Nirupma Srivastav. I am CHRO with Create Global. My question is with Nishchal. You have just mentioned about skill gap because I am also struggling with the same kind of issues with my organization. Recently, like 4 or 5 months back, we have initiated the process of hyper program in the organization, and that is done with the help of DDI India. So process has been initiated very successfully, long 4 months, we are 5-6 months, we are going on. But the kind of seriousness I really look for from the like people managers or our like top leadership team, that is not coming. With the result, the effectiveness which I really look forward is not coming. So what do you feel should be the like way for taking it forward?
Change the CEO. Sorry. Oh, no. You've obviously mentioned very pertinent points. That's why when I spoke of a learning ecosystem and a learning organization, actually, if you go back to Peter Senge and his work in the 90s of a learning organization, the involvement of the leadership, the setting of the tone, the role that they play, the advocacy, the ambassadorship that is expected, that is a starting point. And it influences what we generically define as alignment. When you talk about learning strategy alignment with business, actually, that has two very other important A's. One is, of course, agreement, wherein you have a explicit understanding of why